Hey, Felix is
I'm
here.
not really wanted here, am
Let's
I?
talk about the man that killed New Coke.
Yes, this is a story that's from the Mother Jones, written a couple of years ago by a guy named Tim Murphy. Anyone who was alive in the mid-'80s, you remember that Coca-Cola went through this weird phase where all of a sudden they said, hey, everybody, we've got this great new flavor.
Yeah.
No one had asked for a new flavor. Their sales had kind of softened. Pepsi had Michael Jackson as a spokesperson. Pepsi was kind of on the rise as this more hip, younger thing, and Coke was, GIs in World War II and those old Santa Claus covers on the back of the National Geographic at the library. So anyway, they said, we're going to do a whole new flavor to kind of update it for the modern 1980s. And it just was a total disaster. But no, it was a total disaster. This article, part of it, I think it's not totally accurate. And I point that out in this little radio play that I've written for Bad History Playhouse. No. It's not, I was there. I lived through this. I remember, this wasn't because this Seattle guy who was going to highlight in this play, he might have pushed the needle further than it would have gone on its own.
Yeah.
New Coke was disgusting. It tasted like Pepsi.
Hold on. They tested it in the southeast part of the United States, the birthplace of Coca-Cola. And they did testing for about a year and a half, and people liked it. They really liked it. They're like, this is good. We like this.
Market research, that kind of research that's always been shown. There's research that shows that kind of research is phony.
The light's really bright right now.
Yeah, look at that. People are really tuning in. Okay, so we got some theme music, and then we'll start. This is our second. It's really our second. We did a pilot of Bad History Playhouse.
The words you're about to read, are these the words that these people said?
For the most part, yes. Especially this guy, the hero of the story. Pretty much all his quotes are verbatim. There's a few that I took some liberties with, but those should be pretty obvious, I hope.
Here we go.
And now on this edition of Bad History Playhouse, a story about a man. A man who stood up for what's old and therefore what's right. His name, Gay Mullins. His home, Seattle, the Emerald City. Our story begins in the early 1980s. Not in Seattle, but in Atlanta. Way, way down south in Atlanta at the headquarters of Coca-Cola during a meeting of Coca-Cola executives.
Pepsi's gaining ground. We need to do something, or this company's going to go flat, I tell you, flat.
I have an idea for a new formula to make Coke taste more like Pepsi. Let's call it New Coke.
Yeah. The Coke executives took the big change very seriously. Listen to this wacky, but actually completely genuine internal Coke memo comparing New Coke's launch to D-Day, the liberation of Europe from the Nazis.
In its size, scope, and boldness, it is not unlike the Allied invasion of Europe in 1944. This is not just another product improvement, not just a repositioning or a new product introduction. This is quite simply and must not fail.
Before New Coke was made public, it beat out old Coke in taste tests all over the country, just as John Curley was claiming a moment ago, even in Coke's hometown of Atlanta. The new drink was revealed to the public at Lincoln Center in New York City in late April 1985. For the first few weeks, it seemed like everything was popping for New Coke. Meanwhile, in Seattle, real estate speculator Gay Mullins was unhappy.
I don't like the way this new stuff tastes. I'm unhappy.
Contrary to what the Mother Jones article says, many other longtime Coke drinkers felt the same way. Anyhow, as the bad aftertaste swirled in his mouth, in Gay Mullins' brain, he saw a pre-internet style opportunity.
I see an opportunity. I will launch a group called Old Coke Drinkers of America. I will take on the establishment and make a big name for myself as a provocateur. Provocateur is French. I will step up and set up a hotline for people to call and voice complaints.
There was no internet, so you had to call in. Gay Mullins told People magazine, and this is an actual quote,
"They have taken away my freedom of choice. It is un-American."
A Coke historian later wrote that the battle between Old Coke, with its southern roots in Atlanta, and New Coke, which debuted in that Yankee bastion of New York City, was like a new version of the Civil War. A professor in Mississippi actually said,
Changing Coca-Cola is an intrusion on tradition, and a lot of Southerners won't like it, regardless of how it tastes.
And that's not Foghorn Leghorn, that's Aaron Granillo. Even Andy Rooney weighed in on 60 Minutes, but he kind of missed the point. What did you expect? It was Andy Rooney, after all. I've been very upset with the Coke people ever since they decided to phase out that great little green hourglass-shaped bottle. Meanwhile, Gay Mullins was getting a little carried away. Here's another actual quote.
The Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War occurred because of taxation without representation. There was no freedom of choice. We went to war in Europe to help England because another country was impinging on their freedom of choice. I feel this is the battle of the magnitude.
Just 2 months after New Coke was launched, the company gave up. They sent the first case of classic Coke to Gay Mullins right here in Seattle.
Americans have reclaimed our heritage.
Another actual quote. But Gay wasn't done. He said Classic Coke used corn syrup instead of cane sugar and picked another cola fight. But the media and most of America eventually lost interest. Gay Mullins, great American, took his last sip in 2017. Thanking you all for joining us for this edition of Bad History Playhouse.
Nice job, everyone.
Well done.
The music is great. Music is the best part.
The best part, yeah. They'll be waiting
I
for
like
it.
the way it just stops. That's the best part.
I was a little early on the body thudding.
Now, do we have
No, I kind of jumped the gun on that. I'd forgotten that I called for a body thud.
Yeah,
That was good,
do
though.
we all go somewhere and wait for reviews to come in?
Yeah, I'll go down to Hurley's and wait for the early edition of the New York Times to come in about 2 in the morning. I'll go across the street and
Will
grab
this
it.
be on the air check next week?
I won't even be on the podcast today. I'll tell you that much.
I
I just say, like, it is a fascinating story.
It's crazy.
And
yeah.
here's the argument that I would make. They tested it. What happened was most people were okay with it, but there were a few people, like this guy, Gay Mullen, who was really upset. So the media went into all the people that were stirring the pot on this, and then people who hadn't even tried it yet were like, "Oh, I hate it too."
It tasted bad. I tasted it. I didn't need some puppet guy pulling the strings. I hated New Coke from the moment it entered my mouth.